Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governor should come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians are ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or whatever. We're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
Hey, friends and neighbors, what do you say? Here we go on a big Wednesday, April 8th. So good to see you today here on Free Speech TV. And, of course, that's nationwide and on our video stream, TawkrTV, which is worldwide, youtube.com/Tawkr, TAWKR-TV. Oh, boy, the last thing we needed here in Washington, D.C. yesterday, a power outage causing a lot of problems around town. The escalators in the metro were shut down, so you had to hoof up all the way up those, up from the stations up to the street level. And some of the Smithsonians were shut down because they went dark and people had to flood out onto the malls for a couple of hours, so they got that fixed. And at the White House, we were locked in because the Secret Service didn't know what was going on. They were afraid it might have been a terrorist attack, and things were on high alert there at the White House. They finally got it all straightened out. That didn't prevent President Obama from holding his prayer breakfast yesterday at the White House, where he started out by saying, maybe I should talk today about some of the less than loving Christians. He's in a little hot water for making that comment, but it is true. I've always said, reading my hate mail over the years, that Christians can hate better than anybody else, and they are usually proud to do so. Rand Paul, Kentucky senator for 4 years, jumping into the Republican presidential race for 2016 yesterday, the second Republican to make it official. Rand Paul, the big question is, will the Republican Party this time around be willing to nominate a non-establishment candidate for president? And would they even be willing to go so far as to nominate a libertarian candidate for president? Highly unlikely. And in South Carolina, making headlines today, big change over what we've seen lately. A white police officer actually charged with murder for shooting a young black man, unarmed black man, in the back. And that officer now charged with murder. He was stopped for just a traffic light violation, didn't have a taillight, missing a taillight on his car. Lots to talk about. 866-55-PRESS is your ticket to call the show. We look forward to hearing from you and glad to have you with us this morning on Wednesday, April 8th.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
my beauty,
my power,
my life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea
battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
Seen around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
President Obama talks about less than loving Christians. Gets in a little hot water yesterday for telling the truth. Hey, hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday, April 8th. So good to see you today here on the Bill Press Show. How about it? Coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. You go to the United States Capitol building and turn right. Just come a couple of blocks, and there we are, bringing you up to date on the news of the day, such as it is here in Washington, D.C., with the Senate and the House out of town. Not a lot of news, except there was yesterday afternoon when suddenly parts of Washington, D.C. went dark. We'll tell you all about that, creating a lot of confusion, a lot of anxiety in certain quarters, particularly at the White House where I was. We'll bring you up to date again on the news from Washington, around the country, and around the globe, and then open up the lines to you to find out what you think about it all. You know how to do so. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. Here we are with the team, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Hello.
Hello, Bill. Hey, good morning.
Here we are. Alicia Cruz also on the phones, ready to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS, and Cyprian Bolding, our videographer on the job. With getting the picture out there, the video stream, and Free Speech TV. So those of you who care to watch can do so. What do you say? It was weird yesterday at the White House, I got to tell you.
I'm sure.
First of all, it was there was all kinds of stuff going. So Oliver Stone is making a movie about Edward Snowden, right? So Oliver Stone and his whole crew were there. And so they had all kinds of extra little stuff set up on Pennsylvania Avenue so they could, and they had extras there with Iran or Iraq protest signs or something. But there are always protest signs in front of the White House. But when I got there, they were shut down. Pennsylvania Avenue was shut down.
Jeez.
And so all the people were back in the park across the street from the White House. So I got my pass. I was able to get across the street and get in the White House. But it happens so often, you never know what's going on. So we got in without any problem. The problem I found out was getting out. So we get there, the briefing doesn't start, and there's all kinds of rumors about stuff going on, and there are all kinds of extra Secret Service guys walking around with big guns.
Scary.
And finally they said, but the briefing is going to be delayed. So I went outside, and by this time, they had cleared people not only from Pennsylvania Avenue, they had cleared Lafayette Park, and people were back on H Street, so like a block and a half from the White House. And we're all wondering kind of what's going on. So I decided I'm going to get out of here.
Run! Probably a good idea.
And I just started walking toward the front gate, and the Secret Service officer stopped me. And he said, "You can't go that way." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, can I go that way?" And he said, "No, you can't go that way either." And how about, can I go out of that gate, that other gate way back there? And he said, "Oh, yeah, you can. I think you can do that." And then suddenly he says, "Wait, stop." And I can see he's listening.
Oh,
and
my
he
goodness.
says, you know, things are changing so fast. I can't really, you can't go that way either. I just have to ask you, go back to the press room and and just wait further instructions.
Oh, wow.
So I walk back to the press room, and by this time there's a whole gaggle of reporters outside, including some guys with TV cameras who are filming me talking to the Secret Service agent.
Oh, no.
And so as I'm walking back, they're all interviewing me about what did the Secret Service officer tell you?
Oh, no.
No, I mean, no. It was not. So we stand around, and then they come down and they say, everybody's got to be inside of the building. So they actually said, stay inside. You're not allowed outside. I mean, it was really confusing.
Freaky, man.
And what turned out was there was a power outage in Northwest Washington, or maybe even in Maryland, not exactly sure, which shut down parts of the city, and the White House didn't know what was going on. They were afraid it could have been a terrorist group that had disabled the electric grid in order to try to get through the gates, because the gates were electronically controlled. And the White House was on backup generator power.
Right.
And then, with all this filming and everything, there had been some suspicious package left on Pennsylvania Avenue, so that added to this. So it was a tense,
a little chaotic.
Yeah, a tense hour or so. I talked to a friend of mine from the Secret Service later who told me that we were very close to being put in the bunker, the White House bunker.
Oh, man.
They have different levels of alert, and we were at one level, and if we'd gone up to the next level, we all would have been in the bunker.
You were almost there.
Overnight, maybe. Yeah, no, I wouldn't have been overnight.
Cheney bunker.
Yeah, been in the Cheney bunker, right? So, yeah, weird day yesterday, and maybe the worst part of all was, not just for me, but for a lot of Washingtonians, that the metro was running, so that electricity worked, but the escalators were not. And anybody who's ridden the Washington Metro knows that some of those escalators are mountains to climb, baby.
Yeah, man.
They're scary, too, especially in the dark. I can't even imagine.
Well, they're just... I was at the bottom of one of them yesterday looking up, and I said, no. If it were a mountain, it would have been a switchback, making it easier. You know, the escalator goes straight up. Yeah.
Oh, man.
But we survived, and here we are with a lot to talk about today. David Jackson... he and I were talking about this yesterday. He joins us a little bit later from USA Today. Evan McMorris-Santoro will be here as a friend of Bill from Buzzfeed for our third hour together. And Lynn Sweet, Chicago Sun-Times, on the big election yesterday in Chicago. Rahm Emanuel winning easily a second term. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. We talk a lot about minimum wage for fast food workers here on the show, and so a new analysis by USA Today took a look at the
There's a reason I like the Full Court Press.
Shaken, not stirred.
You get your cocktail.
That is the time for me to get my morning coffee.
Break it open, man. Let's start partying now. USA Today took a look at the top 13 CEOs of well-known retailers and restaurants, including Chipotle, Pizza Hut, and Dunkin' Donuts, to find out that, you know what they make an hour on average?
I'll tell you, a lot more. They make probably as much in an hour as a fast food worker makes in a month.
You're not far off. The average CEO makes $5,859 per hour. They take a look at like Steve Ells and Montgomery Moran. Those are the two. They are the two co-CEO of Chipotle. They rake in over $13,000 per hour each.
Wow, that's sick.
If you look at Panera Bread, the CEO, he pulls in $1,292 per hour. He's the lowest on the list.
Yeah, right.
So,
well, if I were that Chipotle guy, I'd work an hour a day.
Yeah, just an hour a day.
Go for an hour.
Yeah, exactly. The latest cookbook, Bill, is coming from the latest celebrity chef, goes by the name of Watson. Yes, Watson. IBM supercomputer Watson is putting out perhaps the world's first cookbook created by computer algorithm. IBM engineers put massive amounts of recipe data into Watson's processors so that Watson could learn, quote, flavor composition, nutritional information, different culinary cultural norms, and spit them back out into a cookbook. So you get recipes for Indian turmeric paella, Kenyan Brussels sprouts, and Swiss Thai asparagus quiche. Not sure I'm on the hook for that one. But you can buy it. It is a new cookbook out there called Cognitive Cooking.
No.
Oh, my
Chef
goodness.
Watson.
All right, I recommend the Barefoot Contessa instead.
Yes.
Yes.
It's probably
okay.
going to be better off with that one.
Mm-hmm. I've got every one of our cookbooks. Love it.
And we
love her.
And we go to Tampa, Florida, where UConn beat Notre Dame last night in the women's NCAA championship final. It is their third straight NCAA women's basketball championship and the 10th championship for head coach Gino Auriemma.
Wow.
That ties him for John Wooden, UCLA men's basketball coach, for the most titles in college basketball history. So congratulations to UConn. They beat Notre Dame 63-53. A little bit closer than some people were thinking.
Yeah.
But they won.
All right. Thank you, Peter. Yes, indeed. Boy, we start the day with a very, very troubling story, but a different story than we've seen recently. You know, we've talked a lot lately about police shootings, particularly shootings of black men, unarmed black men, by white police officers. And we're talking, of course, Ferguson, but not just Ferguson. We're talking Staten Island. That wasn't a shooting. It was a choking. We're talking a shooting in Cleveland, of course. And in each of those cases, the white police officer, no charges were filed. And that's created a lot of concern, starting with the President of the United States, Attorney General of the United States, and many American citizens about what's going on with justice in this country. A big difference yesterday out of Peter's home state of South Carolina, in the city of North Charleston, South Carolina, which is the third largest city in the state, where a white police officer shot a black man, 50, stopped him for a traffic stop. He was missing a taillight in his Mercedes.
That's
right?
it.
Taillight
That's
missing.
all.
Okay. But he ended up, the black man, they tussled a little bit. The black man started running away. The police officer, white police officer, shot him 8 times in the back and killed him. The officer reported that he feared for his life and accused the man of stealing his taser gun. That was on April 4, just 4 days ago. That's the way the story was first reported. And then here again, just like up in New York, in Staten Island, a video surfaces. A video surfaced taken by a bystander. The video shows a totally different story. The man running away, the officer shooting him, and then perhaps most dramatically, the police officer walks back over to the body of the black man and drops the stun gun alongside of him, the stun gun that he reportedly stole from the police officer. When that video surfaced yesterday, that white police officer, Michael Slager, was charged with murder. It's such an unusual, by the way, this should not be unusual, but the fact that this white police officer is charged with murder is so unusual that the New York Times today, this is the nation's newspaper, not some local Charleston rag, right? The nation's newspaper, the top headline across the page is, "Officer is charged with murder of a black man shot in the back." And it has 5 photographs, stills taken from that video. We hear on the video the sound of the officer firing as the black man, Walter Scott, is running away. Yeah. And then the officer walked over, put handcuffs. As the guy is lying,
He's just screaming at him. Put your hands behind your back.
Yeah, the final shot is the one that fells him. They walks over, screaming at him, puts handcuffs on him, walks away. Then another police officer walks up. Then the officer, the first officer, Michael Slager, walks back, and that's when he drops the stun gun alongside of him.
In front of the other officer.
In front of the other officer, the police chief Eddie Diggers said, here's what I saw in that video.
I saw a confrontation between an individual and a police officer, and as the individual took off from the police officer, he was shot.
And as a result of that video, again, Police Chief Eddie Diggers.
As the result of that video and the bad decision made by our officer, he will be charged with murder.
Yep. Wow. Eddie Diggers, I'm sorry, I should have said the police. But you know what I think is so, again, remarkable and unusual and welcome about this is, the police department in this case, they're not playing games, right? There's no delay. Yeah, the police officer said, I consider these officers, each one of them, my children, and to see one of my children, that's how he referred to them, do something wrong really hurts me, really pains me. But the video doesn't lie. The mother, Judy Scott, of the victim, obviously very upset.
When you can take a young man from a traffic stop and just cut him down like that, murder him. He was murdered. And this needs to stop.
And the brother, Anthony Scott, brother of Walter Scott, the victim in this case, who was 50 years old, raises a very, I think, important point. What would have happened if there had been no video?
If there wasn't a video, would we know the truth? Or would we just go on what was reported earlier? But we do know the truth now.
Yep. And again, I got to salute the mayor down there of North Charleston. By the way, North Charleston is 47, Peter, you know it well, I'm sure, 47% black. Mm-hmm. The police department is 80% white.
Yep.
But the mayor Keith Summey.
Yep. Been there for a long time.
Said, quote, when you're wrong, you're wrong. And if you make a bad decision, don't care if you're behind the shield or just a citizen on the street, you have to live by that decision.
That's a huge...
That's the way it ought to be.
Thing to say.
Yeah.
It does. I don't care if you're behind the shield, live with that decision. He said that's something that everybody should adopt and everybody should pay attention to. Just because you're a cop, just because you're a police officer doesn't mean that people have to rally around you when you screw up.
Right. Yeah.
Including your co-workers and fellow cops.
But that's not the attitude we saw certainly in Ferguson, Missouri, not what we saw in Staten Island, and not what we saw in Cleveland, Ohio, here in North Carolina. So what's this all in North Charleston, South Carolina? What's this all mean to you? 866-55-PRESS. Looks like in this one case, justice might be done. Is this, have we turned the corner? 866-55-PRESS. Let's talk about it Wednesday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies in Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, boy, that's a half an hour gone fast. Before we get to your calls, 866-55-PRESS on this white officer charged with murder of a black man, shooting him in the back. Peter?
We are on Twitter at BP Show. Don Griffith wonders what the police chief is going to do with the officer that showed up and watched this guy drop the taser next to the body.
That is also on the video, and that, by the way, is an African-American officer who walks up. He's standing there. The white officer who shot him walks back to the victim, and you can see it clearly on the video, drops that taser gun alongside of his body, and then reports, again, that he feared for his life after the man stole the taser gun from him, which he clearly did not. We'll have time for your calls right here after the half hour, so stay right tuned.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
You bet it is. The Bill Press Show, 33 minutes after the hour. Here in Washington, D.C., our studio on Capitol Hill, brought to you today by the National Education Association and their dynamic new president, Lily Eskelsen Garcia. Together, the Teachers of America, God love them, creating great public schools for every student in this country. And for more information, check out their website at NEA.org. Again, it has been on the cable news this morning, the lead story on all three channels that we watch here in the studio. And it is by far the boldest, biggest front page story on the New York Times. Officer is charged with murder of a black man shot in the back. That story out of North Charleston, South Carolina. 4 days ago, the shooting was reported as a man just pulled over for a traffic violation, missing a taillight on the car. It was just reported the man wrestled with an officer, stole his taser gun, ran away, and the officer, fearing for his life, shot him in the back as he was running away. A video surfaced by just a bystander, took that video. Can't believe what he is seeing. You hear him using a few obscenities to mark,
as I would
too, if I saw what he had seen. But that video clearly shows this was a case of cold-blooded murder, a bad decision. The police chief himself called it. So did the mayor. And that white police officer, Michael Slager, has been charged with murder. Johnny joins us on the news line from Chicago, Illinois. Hello, Johnny.
Hi there. How you guys doing?
Good. We're doing good. What do you think of this?
Well, I think it's just one of these things that will be whitewashed in a sense because the video. If there was no video, no case.
That's a very good point, but there is a video, which is why I don't think this will be whitewashed.
Yeah, exactly, but hey, you don't know how the justice system works, Mr. Press.
It's hard to argue with this video when the police. I hear you. Listen, after OJ, we could all be skeptical about what happens in a courtroom, but in this case, I think the police department is saying they're saying this guy did wrong. The video shows that he did wrong. It's going to be hard to make a case to defend this guy.
Yeah, and
when you see him drop the gun alongside of him,
I think this guy is going to go away for a long, long time. But to get to Johnny's point, this is one case. How many are there without the video? This just brings up that argument for police cameras again.
Totally.
Because yeah, this guy got caught. somebody was lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time and have a camera to capture it. What happens to the next 10, 20 unarmed black men that get gunned down by white cops? We can only hope that there's a camera around. So, yeah, get body cameras, man. Body cameras on all these guys.
Absolutely. Body cameras that they can't turn off. That they cannot turn off.
You got a gun, you get a body camera.
Yeah. You also got to say, there was a video in Staten Island, too. It showed pretty clearly.
Yeah. That's a good point.
And yet no charges filed against that officer. But again, the response of the police department here, I think, is really critical, where the police chief was, he was flat out saying the officer was wrong. Ike, down in Charleston, South Carolina. Hello, Ike. You know this.
We'd hear from you, Ike.
Boy, I know we knew we'd hear from you today. You know this area. What do you think, Ike?
Yeah, I live in this area. I'm your North Charleston bureau chief, don't you know?
Yeah, ours.
And I'm no angel. I've had some interactions with these guys. I'll give you a heads up. About 6 months ago, I believe it was last fall, we had an unarmed black man shot down in an apartment complex. And at the time, the eyewitnesses were saying that, it didn't pass the smell test. And it did get swept under the rug. I hate to say it, but this kind of thing happens all the time, not necessarily just here, but, across the country. And we need a change in the justice system. We need a change in the training of these police officers. And they need to understand the bright red line. You got a blue line, we got a bright red line. It's called deadly force, and there's only certain times you should use it. And, yes, more video, more openness, and more sunlight to the situation. And if they've got a problem with that, they need to find another job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, if they can't be responsible for every one of their actions, every moment of every day, right, they're in the wrong line of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Ike is right. We know stuff like this is happening. And we've just seen a few little examples of it pop up that we've heard about. What about all these cases that we do not hear about, right? Yeah. Where there's been a lot of cover-up, right?
This is one of the things I saw online a lot last night when I was watching people talk about this and tweet about this, is black men particularly, but black people in this country saying, you never know when this could happen to you. This guy was pulled over for a busted taillight. Right. I think everybody's had an experience with something, a headlight gone out or a busted taillight or something like that. You never know when it's going to be that cop who doesn't know what he's doing, or that's giving him the benefit of the doubt, doesn't know what he's doing. At worst, it's something far more dark. But you just never know.
Never know.
It's terrifying.
And it's also true, I must say, that as a white male, I know if I were pulled over for my license expired, right, or a headlight missing or a taillight missing, the chances that I'm going to end up getting shot for that are like non-existent, right? Whereas for a black male, particularly a young black man, right, probably 25% chance, maybe, or more.
It's a reality. It's a reality that black people in this country face every single time that they get behind the wheel of a car or go out in public or whatever.
Yeah. And Mayor de Blasio got in trouble from some people because he warned his son, you've got to be extra special careful as a young black man. He was telling him the truth. President Obama said the same thing. If I had a son, this is what I'd have to say as well. Out in Vallejo, California, town I know very, very well, there in Solano County. Hey, Johnny, what's up?
Yeah, hi, Bill.
Hi.
This thing didn't even pass the smell test. You fear for your life that all the bullets are in the man's back. It shouldn't have really taken a video.
It shouldn't. You're right.
For this to
you would think somebody who shot in the back 8 times because he had a taillight missing, that it would take a video to nail this cop for doing that? Right.
Right.
But it sadly, it does, Johnny.
It would have been swept under the rug if it hadn't been for this video.
But do you think this will make any difference?
I think it will. We're gonna have more videos on the police.
Nope. Yep. No, I think we will. All right. Hello to Vallejo, Johnny. I used to have an office in Vallejo, believe it or not. How about that? Yeah, when I was working for State Senator Peter Baer. Tony is in Chicago. Hello, Tony. What's your take?
Hi. When you said it's maybe turning the tables, no, it won't. It's just like the brothers called before. I mean, you have thousands of black men that have died this way for decades, and the one time, I'm glad justice is going to be served this time, and I can't wait for him to get locked up, so he can get some real justice. But the fact of the matter is we're not changing our attitude, toward, many of the Ku Klux Klan, as we call them, because they still can get away with it. And like you said, and you would think 8 shots in the back, something else is going on. But look at the black man that was found hung in Mississippi a few weeks ago.
Well, we don't know exactly what happened with that case.
Don't know what happened in that case, right? But no, you make a very strong point, Tony. I just want to believe that you're wrong. I'm not saying you are. I think that there are enough cases now that have come to the attention of the American people, and certainly for the president and the attorney general, that are leading a concerted effort with better training, use of police cameras. I mean, the president's had a top-level commission to look at this problem, and he's talked about this existing tension between police departments, particularly, and the African American community, and what can be done to improve that situation, which would result in a reduction of violence, particularly of white officers against black men. Part of that is putting more black officers on the force, one would hope.
I hear what she's saying, that what's it going to take?
Yeah.
What's it going to take? Is it going to take a young teenager gunned down the way Trayvon Martin was? I know that wasn't a police officer involved in the shooting, but...
A vigilante.
George Zimmerman got away with it. What's it going to take? Is it going to take video of a man being choked out?
Well, how about that police officer?
What's it going to take? Is it going to take a Ferguson, this Michael Brown, gunned down in the middle of the street?
You would think that 11-year-old kid shot in, wasn't it 11-year-old kid?
Rice, Cleveland,
shot in Cleveland, Ohio.
That's not enough.
That's all it would take.
Yeah.
But this could be the tipping point. This video. I think that's why. It's certainly why we wanted to talk about it, and it's why the New York Times has made it the banner headline for the day across the nation. We'll have a chance to talk more about this a little bit later in the program as well, and we'll continue to follow the actions taken now as this moves into formal charges being filed yesterday and now in the trial and everything. We're going to be watching this case very closely and have a chance to talk about it some more. 866-55-PRESS. Right now we're going to jump down to the White House. David Jackson standing by from USA Today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I'm not necessarily looking out and seeing all these water-wasting lawns and people that aren't as connected to their neighbors and their lives as they could be. I'm walking down the street looking, going, edible oases, rainwater, fed landscape, and just looking at the possibility of these sort of landscapes up and down the streets of neighborhoods and communities all across this world. Small actions do ripple, and they add up, and they have a cumulative impact. And so when you're building upon your small mindful actions, you have the confidence and the ability to take on something a little bit greater. So that could be nice. This, in the context of where we're at as a planet with climate change and these really big issues and people that are more disconnected and less skilled than ever, it becomes even more amazing and powerful how much of a solution this is to design these ecological gardens and to come together with shared vision and shared voice. There's never been a time where your choices have mattered more. Doing something as simple as us transforming a landscape creates a model that anybody could look at far and wide, and you're sharing food and connecting and building skills together in your own neighborhood. It's a richer way to live in normal times, but in the new normal of climate change and erratic weather and economic upheaval, it becomes essential. Whether it's me, you, Gandhi, Che, MLK, Willy Wonka, whoever, past, present, or future, the power of our daily actions is all that we have. And like Archimedes said, give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I'll move the world. And that's what those simple actions do. They move the world every day.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Well, 13 minutes before the top of the hour here. It was a wild day at the White House yesterday. I was just glad I got out of there. I thought I was going to have to spend the night in the bunker with David Jackson. David Jackson from USA Today, White House correspondent.
What better person to spend it with?
Yeah, right. But for a while there, we didn't know what was going on, David, yesterday.
It was very bizarre. I mean, were you in there when it actually happened?
No. So the lights flickered, right?
The lights blipped off and then came right back on, and it was just really sudden and really kind of creepy. And it was only for a few seconds, but you knew something wasn't right. But as it turned out, the White House has backup generators that kicked in immediately once the power went off. So
interesting that they did, and So to sort it out, it looks like there was this power outage, which could certainly interfere with the electronic control of the gates and everything. A friend of mine from the Secret Service told me later that they didn't know what the source was, and they were afraid it could have been a terrorist organization that had interfered with the electrical power, and they were afraid, to be able to force the gates open or something.
Right. No, it was. I'm sure when it happened, people wondered what the heck was going on, because it was a beautiful day yesterday. There wasn't a weather factor. If it had been a storm or something, people might have understood. But I guess it turned out to be some kind of malfunction at Pepco, because a lot of offices in the area had lights out for a much longer time than the White House did.
And then, to make it even more strange, that Oliver Stone was filming this movie in front of the White House, right?
Oliver Stone was the Edward Snowden movie.
Yeah. The Edward Snowden movie, of all things, right? And so you had all of those people around, and it was just a strange scene.
Well, we also had a lockdown. I don't know if you were around for that, but someone left a package in Lafayette Park. So whenever there's an unattended package, they automatically do a lockdown just in case. So
I was crazy. I was there for the lockdown, and when they forced us back inside the briefing room, wouldn't even let us stand outside the briefing room. Right. Yeah,
everybody goes inside when there's a lockdown.
For a while. And again, my Secret Service friend told me last night that the next step would have been that we would have been in the bunker.
Well, you know those gas masks are, Bill, so you grab your gas mask and go on down.
So actually, I took the first opportunity to get out the gate, Dave, because I didn't know what was going on. So I was not there for the briefing, which finally started, about an hour and a half late, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was wondering if there was any major news going on, but it turned out it was just an accumulation of things. But the briefing interrupted the president's comments on climate change, which is very unusual that there would be a briefing at a time of a presidential event. But that's the way things stacked up yesterday.
Now the president takes off today for Jamaica on the way to Panama. Why Jamaica?
That's a good question. I don't know. You know, originally the rumor was he wanted to go to Peru and perhaps go to Machu Picchu, but the problem with that is that it would take him a couple of days to adjust to the elevation.
Oh. Huh.
And for whatever reason, that idea went away. And then the next thing you know, he wanted to go to Jamaica. I think he's the first president to go down there, maybe since Reagan. So he just felt like it's an ally. It's on the way to Panama. They don't want to. A lot of presidents don't want to do just a trip to just one place and come right back.
Yeah.
They like to extend it and kind of spread the diplomatic love around, if you will.
I mean, I can see why I'd like to go to Jamaica, but I know why I'd like to go to Jamaica. Yeah, they're good rum, and
he's going to be there for less than 24 hours, so I don't think he'd be able to get. We were wondering if he was going to sample one of their golf courses, but I don't think he's got enough time.
All right, so then he goes off to Peru, to Panama rather, for the summit of the Americas. And is there any serious business there? And what about a meeting with President Castro?
I think that is a serious business. It's all about Cuba, I think, and how the golden idea for a lot of people is to integrate Cuba into the overall economies of Central and South America and North America. So I think they'll be laying a lot of the groundwork for some of that. But the real question is whether he'll meet with Castro or not. White is being pretty cagey on that. I don't think there'll be a formal meeting. There won't be a bilateral, but I do think that the two leaders will bump into each other and perhaps talk.
Oh, they'll certainly bump into each other. You don't think it'll be a bilat? I mean,
I don't think
sit down.
They'll formalize it. I think it'll be more of a casual, hey, gee, good to see you, and then they'll do business together.
And he's down there a couple of days. I don't even.
Right, he's down Friday and Saturday.
Yeah,
he's having a news conference Saturday night, I think, right before he leaves. So it'll be somewhere between 4 and 6 o'clock our time, but which will be kind of interesting because I think he'll take several questions. And it's the first time he's faced the press in quite some time. But the two big things I think for the Summit of America is Cuba and the fact that he'll be taking questions on a variety of topics.
Mm-hmm. The brownout or blackout or whatever power shortage yesterday also did not interfere with the prayer breakfast, nor with the president's opportunity to get himself in a little hot water again, huh?
Well, I guess so. I mean, he was just talking about how the Christians have the duty to love their neighbors, but when he sees some of the unchristian things said about him,
than loving.
I thought it was just a nice little joke.
Yeah,
I guess you can't say anything at these prayer breakfasts now without somebody reading something into it. You got into a situation about the crusade, talking about the Crusades at the last prayer breakfast, and people tried to. I just think these religious events, people are just fly-specking every little thing that are said.
Right. No, he said something about when he sees some of the less than loving comments that come his way, right?
Right, exactly.
But you know what? As a commentator and as a talk show host, that's been my experience, and I've often said it, that the hate mail and the emails that I've got from people who start out by saying they're a Christian are some of the most hate-filled stuff I ever received, right?
Well, there you go. Well, that's the one thing. I guess that's the one intriguing thing. But Obama didn't specify what he was talking about, whether he was talking about John Boehner or whether he was talking about the kind of things you are, the emails and nasty letters he gets. But it was kind of interesting. I was more interested in his critique of Scott Walker, frankly, that he gave to NPR than I was.
Which was, remind me, yeah.
Oh, as an aside to the NPR interview a couple days ago, Walker said he would scrap the Iran deal on day one if he got elected, and Obama said that wouldn't be a good idea, and that he said Walker needs to bone up on foreign policy.
Wow. Yeah.
Jeez.
So that was kind of a direct shot at a Republican opponent. It's kind of the first time he's really waded into the Republican presidential campaign.
All right. Well, before leaving for Jamaica, we got a little No, we have a briefing today at noon, and I'll look for you down there, David.
Let the lights stay on. I'll be looking.
Let the lights stay on. All right. See you later, David Jackson, USA Today White House correspondent.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship.
Families are being punished. When they incarcerate your children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News
founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Hey, well, that kind of takes care of hour number one here on this Wednesday, April 8. Lynn Sweet joins us in the next hour to talk about the results of the big Chicago election. A little bit later on, Evan McMorris-Santoro from Buzzfeed here is a friend of Bill, and then we will go on the campaign trail with Rand Paul, day one of his campaign for president up in New Hampshire. Lots of excitement coming up.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends and neighbors, what do you say? Here we go on a big Wednesday, April 8. So good to see you today here on Free Speech TV. And, of course, that's nationwide and on our video stream, TawkrTV, which is worldwide, youtube.com/Tawkr, TAWKR-TV. Oh, boy, the last thing we needed here in Washington, D.C. yesterday, a power outage causing a lot of problems around town. The escalators in the metro were shut down, so you had to hoof up all the way up those, up from the stations up to the street level. And some of the Smithsonians were shut down because they went dark and people had to flood out onto the malls for a couple of hours, so they got that fixed. And at the White House, we were locked in because the Secret Service didn't know what was going on. They were afraid it might have been a terrorist attack, and things were on high alert there at the White House. They finally got it all straightened out. That didn't prevent President Obama from holding his prayer breakfast yesterday at the White House, where he started out by saying, maybe I should talk today about some of the less than loving Christians. He's in a little hot water for making that comment, but it is true. I've always said, reading my hate mail over the years, that Christians can hate better than anybody else, and they are usually proud to do so. Rand Paul, Kentucky senator for 4 years, jumping into the Republican presidential race for 2016 yesterday, the second Republican to make it official. Rand Paul, the big question is, will the Republican Party this time around be willing to nominate a non-establishment candidate for president? And would they even be willing to go so far as to nominate a libertarian candidate for president? Highly unlikely. And in South Carolina, making headlines today, big change over what we've seen lately. A white police officer actually charged with murder for shooting a young black man, unarmed black man, in the back. And that officer now charged with murder. He was stopped for just a traffic light violation, didn't have a taillight, missing a taillight on his car. Lots to talk about. 866-55-PRESS is your ticket to call the show. We look forward to hearing from you and glad to have you with us this morning on Wednesday, April 8th.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here,
but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
And online, this is the Bill Press Show.
Rand Paul is in. Now, if Bernie Sanders only announces, we'll have a libertarian and a socialist running for president. How about that? What a contest. Hey, hello, everybody. Good Wednesday morning, April 8th, 2015. So good to see you. This is the Bill Press Show. We are here in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., just down the street from the United States Capitol and about 5 metro stops away from the White House. Both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue, we've got it covered for you, not just here in Washington, D.C. However, we've also bringing you up to date on all the news of the day around the United States, especially the stunning news out of North Charleston, South Carolina yesterday that a white police officer has been charged with murder in the shooting of a black man. An unarmed black man, such a reversal of what we have seen in several cases around the country in recent months. And we'll also bring you up to date on the big news from Chicago with the help of our good friend Lynn Sweet. So we'll bring you the news. You tell us what you think about it at 866-55-PRESS. Team Press here, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hello, Bill.
Hey, good morning.
Happy Wednesday.
Whole team here today, in fact.
Happy Wednesday. Yes,
Happy Wednesday.
Alicia Cruz, ready to take your calls. 866-55-PRESS is how you weigh in on the issues of the day. Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, of course. We take care of the radio. Cyprian takes care of the video side of events. And we are... did you see yesterday, one of the other events that was interrupted by the power outage was the ceremony for the new stamp for Maya Angelou.
Oh, yeah.
Oprah in the middle of her speech.
Yeah.
When the lights went out in the Warner Theater downtown, 1,700 people there, and Oprah, the real performer. So power goes out. The light on the podium and everything goes out. And Oprah just starts reciting from memory one of Maya Angelou's poems.
Oh my goodness, how beautiful!
No. Isn't that a class
That's
act?
pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's pretty.
I'm telling
There's not much phasing Queen Oprah.
No,
she knows what she's doing.
Yeah, she's ready for it. And the First Lady was in the front row.
Nice.
So yeah, and the lights went on, I think, shortly afterwards. And we had, of course, that disruption at the White House we were talking about a little bit earlier. Again, Lynn Sweet joins us here at the top of the hour from the Chicago Sun-Times to talk about Chicago results in Chicago. Evan McMorris-Santoro from Buzzfeed here is a friend of Bill for the next hour. And we will then jump in up to New Hampshire. Sam Youngman used to be at the White House for The Hill, now with the Louisville Courier, is in New Hampshire with presidential candidate Rand Paul. He'll report into us a little bit later this morning. But first, Peter.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. The 5-second rule, Bill. You know about the 5-second rule. We all know about the 5-second rule. If you drop a piece of food on the ground,
yes,
pick it back up before 5 seconds. It's totally okay
fine
to eat, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we've all been told. Turns out there is no such thing as a 5-second rule. The Daily Mail Australia talked to the Food Safety Information Council, and they said they definitely do not recommend following the 5-second rule, that it's nothing more than a myth. But here's the good news out of that. They do say that there is a difference between, say, hard foods and softer foods.
Right.
So if you were to drop on the ground like chips or hard candy or cookies or crackers or nuts,
right,
if it fell on the ground and you scooped it back up, there is a significantly less chance that there's going to be bacteria on that as opposed to like fruit or meat or something like that might be able to cling on to more stuff.
Scrambled egg or something.
Scrambled eggs. You wouldn't want to pick that up off the floor and eat that. So So there's some good news, bad news. You're taking a risk if you're going to eat anything that came off of the floor. But
Chobani yogurt, if I dropped a little bit of my Chobani yogurt on the floor, I would not want to wipe that.
No, not a good idea.
Okay. So use your head.
Use your head, exactly. Controversial surgeon Dr. Sergio Canavero says that he is ready to perform the first full head transplant on a Russian man who has a disease called Wernig-Hoffman disease. It is a muscle wasting disease which doesn't affect you above the shoulders. So this gentleman by the name of Valery Spiridonov, who is Russian, says he is volunteering himself to be the first full head transplant. We're going to take his head, put it on someone else's body, and we'll see what happens. I'm skeptical.
I'm skeptical too, but I can see lots of possibilities here.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Right.
Make sure I get a good body. If you're going to put me on a body, make sure you get a
No, that's it. You could pick out a good body, and then now that other person would have to sort of be part of the bargain here.
Yeah. Just imagine if it's, this guy's a Russian guy, he's a white guy, they put on a black body or a woman's body. It'd be a great April Fool's Day prank. You just missed it.
Or, you could get a thinner body.
A thinner body?
Yeah.
Sure.
Body in shape. You wouldn't have to work so hard to get your own body in shape.
That's right.
Just
forget the gym.
I'm going to start thinking about a head transplant.
Sick.
And New York City judge has declared that Facebook messages are a perfectly acceptable venue for filing divorce papers. Here's the issue. There's a woman in New York whose husband just disappeared, vanished. They're not sure where he is, but he still reaches out to her
on Facebook?
via Facebook. Yeah. And so you can't mail anything to him. So there is contact through Facebook, through the messenger on Facebook, so they're going to serve divorce papers through Facebook. And the judge says that that's totally fine. It's legally binding. So once you serve those divorce papers through Facebook, she's okay. She's good. She'll be able to do that.
Yeah. You can tweet them, you can email them, you can Facebook them.
You got served.
Yeah.
You got served.
Yeah, there you go. Right. Facebook.com. Facebook/Bill Press.
Don't serve us any papers, man. Jeez.
Yes, indeed. It was a big contest there between Rahm Emanuel and Chuy Garcia. We've talked to Lynn Sweet a couple of times during the campaign on the issues of the campaign and what it might look like. Turns out it wasn't even close. Lynn Sweet joining us on our newsline this morning, Washington bureau chief for the Chicago Sun-Times. Hello, Lynn. How did it turn out? What's the big news here?
Well, good morning.
Hi.
The news is that Rahm got a scare, but he won. He picked up. He had a very tough campaign in the end that he ran against Jesus Chuy Garcia, the Cook County board member, who was the winner along with Rahm of that first round vote bill. And, the election results showed that Rahm was able to increase his turnout in the wards where he had a base.
Yep. You mentioned how important that was.
Yeah.
The last time we talked, right.
Yes, and even though, there is a big Hispanic vote in Chicago, this wasn't, it wasn't big enough to be determinative. And Rahm did decently in some of the African-American wards. And along the lakefront wards, white, middle to upper class, Rahm won with, in the downtown ward, 80% and racked up 60% plus percentages. So I think Rahm was humbled by the process, and the progressive movement in America sent out all kinds of releases heralding the race that Chuy Garcia ran, to show that there's something there. And they think that they made the point, and obviously you can't claim a win, but they claim that they did pretty well given. More than well.
Right. Yeah. What was the final margin? Do you know, or do we know yet?
We know, and I'm looking it up just to double check. So as we do that, ask me something else, and I'll have it for you in a second.
Well, so I did hear that Chuy Garcia, Randy Weingarten was in.
Okay, I have it.
Okay.
About 56% to 44%.
I knew it was double digits. Right. Yeah. Randy Weingarten, president of the AFT, who's been one of the main unions supporting Chuy Garcia, was here in studio with us a couple of days ago. In fact, Monday, the day before the election. And she acknowledged, that Rahm had a big lead. But she said that they felt, the teachers of Chicago, that they had scored a tremendous victory just by forcing a runoff. And,
absolutely. And the AFT. I'm sorry. Go on.
And scaring Rahm, in effect, realizing he had a significant challenge from the left. Do you agree?
Absolutely. AFT put in about $1 million in kind and cash, and the movement was fueled by the teachers. So they got something going that I don't know. In the national perspective, I think there's something to talk about. They were able to take a man who was seen as pretty much impervious to criticism, if nothing else, and they got the attention of the city. They actually did that, and I'm not saying that Rahm is going to have a personality change, but also at issue are the policies that he had that weren't right. He couldn't solve the pension problem. He talked about how he didn't want, he attacked Garcia for not wanting a property tax increase, and now we'll see, can he do this without, without his own, what's his own magic sauce that he's going to do to fix these things after bashing, Garcia so much. So I think there's a lot to be said that there's now more of an opposition movement. That's the legacy of this campaign.
Right. And one of the issues that Randy Weingarten spoke about, and I know this was an issue in the campaign, was that Rahm Emanuel paid so much attention to downtown and to the businesses downtown and the people who live downtown. As you point out, that Miracle Mile kind of crowd, and not a lot of attention to the neighborhoods. Is that going to change? Is that true? And is that going to change?
I think it will change to a bit because there are some opposition aldermen elected. I don't have the number in front of me, but the big theme of the campaign that the progressive groups like Democracy for America were talking about, that it's just Rahm Emanuel and the billionaires funding his campaign.
Right.
And they kind of took it personally. I'm looking at the statement from Jim Dean, the chair of Democracy for America, and he said that Rahm and his supporters wanted to kneecap their progressive opposition and turn Chicago City Council into a rubber stamp for their agenda: privatization, private school closings, and pension cuts. So those are issues that are very much under discussion nationally when it comes to how do we run our cities. So that will be something that Rahm, I think, has to be mindful of as he proceeds, because he has been underwriting some of his initiatives just by going to corporate Chicago and asking for money. And when you do that, you don't go through a city council. The plus is you get the cash. The minus is that the way you want to run a city?
Right. There's another factor in American politics we've talked about at the presidential level, I think at every level, which is just simply, it's not so much where you stand on the issues as likability, right? Now, I don't know him that well, but I don't find Rahm Emanuel to be very likable. Isn't that one of his problems?
It is. I mean, the practical problem is he hasn't figured out. It is, and I've talked about this a lot in the last few weeks. You don't give your policies a chance, even if you think you have the right policies, if you can't get anyone to buy in to what you're doing. That's important. Now, I think there is a question about some of his policies. He couldn't get, and for a practical matter, he does need to do some repair work on building coalitions. We now have a Republican governor in Illinois, and even though Rahm worked with the Republican governor in the private sector, making millions, in deals working with Governor Rauner, Rahm doesn't have a base of support in Springfield that he can count on, even though the General Assembly is Democratic, and he can't. Even under Democratic Governor Pat Quinn, he couldn't get what he wanted, and it might have been because what he wanted was stuff that people didn't agree should be done. So, So I think he's going to have to take a different approach, even if he's not personally humbled, even if he doesn't become more likable. And I think he will for 10 or 20 minutes here, just to show he got the message. Maybe 30. Okay, I'm too tough on him.
Yeah.
I do think that he has to somehow change his approach and reconsider some of the policies that got him in trouble. Is he really going to go ramrod another massive school closing like he did?
Yeah.
That got the school riled up. And you have something now that Mayor Daley never had, either Mayor Daley 1 or Mayor Daley 2, which is a strong, organized opposition.
Right. Yeah, and that has a result of that campaign. All right, now,
right.
Lynn,
and
we got to run. We got to run. But I just have to ask you a quick question. Yesterday was 2 days ago, opening day of the Nats. So when are the Bad News Babes going to start rehearsing, huh? Or practicing?
We have an organizing event on Monday, and then we've already hit the batting cages and spring training.
All right.
Here we go. Suburbs, and we have our formal practice later in April.
All right. Well, when practice starts, remember where the studio is.
Come on in.
All right. Come on in. In your softball garb and all. All right. Thanks, Lynn.
I'll be there.
Talk to you soon. Lynn Sweet from the Chicago Sun-Times and star performer for the Bad News Babes here, the women's softball team in Washington, D.C.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful?
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job, and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand, and they don't get it, and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we are at 26 minutes after the hour. Yes, it turned out it wasn't that close, 56-44. Isn't that what Lynn told us?
Yeah.
In the mayor's race there. But I think she did make the important point that this Chuy Garcia campaign did make a difference. It really brought, as she pointed out, neither the original Mayor Daley or Richard Daley or Richie Daley, neither one of them ever had significant Democratic opposition. Chuy Garcia and the teachers, particularly the Chicago Teachers Association, led by Karen Lewis, were able to mount a serious progressive challenge. Not enough, as in New York, to elect the progressive mayor, Mayor de Blasio, but in Chicago to scare the hell out of Rahm Emanuel. And I think that's a movement that could stay and be a force in Chicago. Here is Rahm Emanuel, reelected last night as mayor, talking about the one thing he and Chuy Garcia had in common.
You just saw an election between both a grandson of an immigrant and an immigrant, which is why we are the greatest city in America.
And Chuy Garcia said, you, my supporters, progressives around the country, got me where I am today.
The people of Chicago have made me who I am today. We may have missed by a little, but you put me here tonight.
So this progressive movement that is building, that we saw with Mayor de Blasio, that we see behind Elizabeth Warren, that we see with Senator Bernie Sanders going out to Chicago and endorsing Chuy Garcia as part of building this nationwide progressive movement, I think is very encouraging. And it doesn't mean they're going to win every election, but they are there and they are a force to be contended with. And Hillary Clinton better take notice.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go now at 33 minutes after the hour. It's Wednesday, April 8th, friends and neighbors. Good to see you today. And we thank you for joining us. We're coming to you live from Washington, D.C. We are brought to you today by the American Federation of Government Employees, the good men and women of the AFGE under President J. David Cox. They are proud to work for America every day, and they should be because they do a good job, a great job, keeping the government agencies going and serving the American public. And you can find out more about their good work at their website, afge.org. Back to the number one big story of the day, a change from what we have seen recently in Ferguson, Missouri, and in Staten Island, New York, and in Cleveland, Ohio. Down in North Charleston, South Carolina, a black man, unarmed, shot and killed by a white police officer. And in this case, as of yesterday, the white police officer has been charged with murder for shooting that black man in the back as he ran away, shooting him 8 times. And this again, as we discussed earlier, if you're just joining us, maybe hearing for the first time, we would not know about this except that a bystander happened to have his iPhone or smartphone and caught it all on video. On the video, the initial reports, I was just reading here during the break, the initial reports were something totally different. We do know, fact, the victim, Walter Scott, was driving his Mercedes. Taillight was missing. He was stopped for a traffic violation. And here's what the police reported initially. Declared that there was an incident at the corner of Remount and Craig Roads. A traffic stop went wrong, and the dead man fought with a police officer over his taser before deadly force was employed. The police said the man, here's how they describe what happened. A man ran on foot from the traffic stop. An officer deployed his department-issued taser in an attempt to stop him. That didn't work. An altercation ensued. And during the struggle, the man gained control of the taser and attempted to use it against the officer. The officer then pulled out his service weapon and shot him. That's the way the thing was originally reported. That's not what the video shows. The video shows, and check it out if you haven't already seen it. The two men are like together. There's a little tussle. The black man starts running away. The police officer shoots him 8 times in the back, walks over, puts handcuffs on him, walks back to where the original confrontation occurred, picks up something from the ground, walks back to the victim, and drops the taser gun alongside of him.
It's really, really unsettling.
On the video, you hear the shots. And again, the Walter Scott, the victim, falls when the last shot is fired. Police officer walking over to him, puts him in handcuffs, walks back to where apparently he had dropped his taser gun, and then walks back to the victim. But by this time, the other thing that's troubling is a second police officer has arrived, who happens to be an African-American police officer, and he is standing there, and he watches as this first police officer, the one who shot him, Michael Slager, drops the taser gun right alongside of the victim and then accuses him of having stolen that taser gun from him. The police chief, Eddie Driggers of North Charleston, South Carolina, saw the video and tells what's on it.
I saw a confrontation between an individual and a police officer, and as the individual took off from the police officer, he was shot. And again, that occurred on April 4. It wasn't until a couple of days later that somebody went to the police with the video and said, look at this, here's what happened. The police chief says, here, as a result of that video, here's what happened yesterday.
As the result of that video and the bad decision made by our officer, he will be charged with murder.
Bad decision made by that officer. And as the mayor of North Charleston, South Carolina, Keith Summey, as Peter, you said he's been there a long time.
Been there a long, long time.
Not as long as that mayor of Charleston.
No, not Joe Riley.
Correct.
Joe.
But Keith Summey said, summed it up, and he said this. Again, such a difference from what we heard and saw in Ferguson or in Staten Island or Cleveland, Ohio, on the role of the police department and local officials. Mayor Keith Summey down there saying, when you're wrong, you're wrong. And if you make a bad decision, don't care if you're behind the shield or just a citizen on the street. You have to live by that decision and pay the consequences. The brother of the victim, victim's name Walter Scott, his brother Anthony Scott, I think makes a very, very important point, raises a question. So what if all we knew about this was what the police department originally reported based on what the police officer, Michael Slager, told them?
If there wasn't a video, would we know the truth? Or would we just go on what was reported earlier? But we do know the truth now.
Yeah, without that video, to me, it just it makes underscores the importance of these body cameras that they're talking about on police officers.
How many shootings, murders have police gotten away with?
Yeah.
That's all I can think of. I mean, you don't know anymore. This police officer, out and out, told a lie.
Yeah.
And so
killed a man, told a lie.
Planted evidence. And according
to the video.
Yeah, look, it's on the video.
Yeah,
it's on the video. It makes me sick. It makes me sick.
And the question is, let's talk about it here. 866-55-PRESS. First of all, this is a radical change from the cover-up and the denial and the defense of murder on the part of white police officers that we saw in Ferguson and in Cleveland, Ohio, and in Staten Island. In this case, the police department, as soon as they saw that video, they acted. The officer has been charged with murder. I saw today he could get the death penalty. Now, I'm against the death penalty, but he could certainly get life in prison in South Carolina. So is this the turning point? Does this mean that America has finally had enough with too many cases of unarmed African Americans being shot and killed by white police officers? And again, here's a case in North Charleston, South Carolina. 47% African American population, 80% white police officers in the police force. But is this a case where Americans have finally had enough of this and they're going to insist on better training for police officers, better equipment for police officers, including body cams, and, most importantly, better enforcement of the law when there are clear violations of the law and police officers are clearly abusing their authority, and in case of white police officers, exercising and showing their bias and acting on it in reacting so strongly and so brutally toward young African-American men. 866-55-PRESS. I hope this is a turning point, but I understand there's been so much of this unreported, and so much of it goes on all across the country, and in many cases there is not a video to change the outcome. I understand why a lot of people, as we've seen this morning, are skeptical that this is going to make any difference at all. I am optimistic that this could be a sign of a change on an issue the President of the United States, the Attorney General of the United States have been talking about, the distrust between the African American community and police departments because of so many incidents where police officers, white police officers, have gotten away literally with murder. But in North Charleston, South Carolina, this police officer did not. 866-55-PRESS. At least he's been charged with murder. We don't know what the jury's going to decide yet, but he'll be tried for murder. 866-55-PRESS. Let's talk about it.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want. But lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right, here we go now. 12 minutes before the top of the hour. Yes, such an unusual turn of events, so different from what we saw in Ferguson, Missouri, for example. But the New York Times has that banner headline across the front page. Officer is charged with murder of a black man shot in the back. It should not be such an unusual item in the news, but it is. And that's why everybody's talking about it this morning. While we're talking about it, we want to know what you think about it. And does this mean that maybe finally enough attention is going to be focused on this case and other cases, that there will be some real changes made in police department operations across the country? Les, calling from Long Island, New York. Hey, Les.
Hey, how you doing, Bill?
All right, good.
Real quick, I heard the first segment, and even the tone is just still very polite about, all right, this guy did something wrong. He got caught in the wrong. No, this guy murdered a man in cold blood, and I think this is just basically a culture of white supremacy in police departments that's not called out for what it is. The KKK, the white supremacists, decided that take off the hoods, put on a badge. Now you don't get charged for hate crimes. You get a medal. You get commended for reducing quote-unquote crime.
Well, I have to say, Les, it's certainly not true of most police officers, but it is true of too many. You're right about that. But I guess the question is, and we've seen it in Ferguson and other places. We saw it in Staten Island. We saw it in Cleveland, Ohio. Does this murder charge yesterday mean that it's starting to change, that maybe people are fed up with this?
Well, what it basically means is that they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar with the guy picking up the taser and walking it over to put it next to the body.
And a video. Yeah.
If that video did not show that, they would have covered this up with the same old usual BS story about, he feared for his life, he went for his weapon, which is what they were setting up to do, and then the video just bust that out.
You're right. That's the way the thing was originally reported.
You know,
they got the video in this case, so I hope doesn't this prove the case why there have to be videos video cams on the police officers that they can't turn off.
You know what I find really disturbing through all of this is the script that these police officers are working off of. I feared for my life.
Feared for my life. We hear that expression all the time. There was a struggle.
Thought I was going to be overpowered.
He grabbed my gun.
He grabbed for my gun.
That's exactly.
It's a script.
That's exactly what whatever his name was in Ferguson said.
Yeah. Darren
Wilson. Yeah.
And it's the same thing with they didn't use a gun on Eric Garner, but they said, we feared for our lives.
Yeah.
We were worried that he was going to harm us. The Tamir Rice, the 11-year-old kid, we feared for our lives. It looked like he had a gun.
Yeah, but again, in this one case, he's not going to get away with it.
Right.
Which to me says maybe this is the wake up. Sabrina in Shreveport, Louisiana. Hi, Sabrina.
Hi, Mr. Press.
Bill, thank you.
I believe that the police chief made the right decision by arresting the police officer and charging him with murder. I mean, this is just outrageous. After I saw the video, I could not believe how he went back to get his taser and drop it by the victim as the other police officer was standing there.
That's one of the most shocking things I've ever seen.
Yeah. He doesn't even try to hide it, right, Sabrina?
Doesn't try to hide it.
No.
And I'm like, how many times have these, because all police officers, in my opinion, are not like this, but these police officers, I refer to them as rogue police officers. How many times have they committed murder and lied about it, covered it up? And I believe without this video, it would have been done again. It would have been another excuse, another, like the first caller said, I fear for my life type rhetoric. But as we can see on the video, he just lied, murdered a man, and was going to try and cover it up.
And would have gotten away with it without the video, Sabrina. Absolutely. So good to hear from you in Asheville, North Carolina on 880 The Revolution. Hello, Diana.
Hi, Bill.
Hi.
I just wanted to say thank God for the video. Thank God for that person, whoever it was. It is the saddest, sickest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, isn't it, though, to see that? I mean, it's just, it is nothing short of seeing a cold-blooded murder.
It's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Okay. Diana, so good to hear from you. We're all shook up about this. You can't see it without just saying.
It's not an easy video to watch.
No. You see that man lose his life for nothing in Chicago. Hello, Sherry.
Good morning. Always a very difficult subject for people because it brings you back to reality. They have the same thing happening here. I think in Rockford, Illinois, with a 17-year-old young black guy that was running away, and he was shot twice in the back. And they admitted that he was shot twice in the back. So modern technology being what it is and advancing every day, thank God, they're going to have to stop it, or they're going to have to just get off of the force. I saw, real quick, a friend of mine when I was 13. I'm 63 now. I saw him shot in the back of the head after he came off of a roof, and the cop called him the N-word, told him to come down. He came down. He shot him in the back of the head, went on about his business, and his brother went over to him and picked up the rest of what was remaining of the upper part of his body.
Oh, my. Oh, Sherry, yeah. Let's just hope, again, I hope this will be a turning point in this whole mess that we've seen too much of. A big change in North Charleston, South Carolina, and thank God for the video.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, a big third hour coming up. You're not going to want to miss any of it because Evan McMorris-Santoro from Buzzfeed is going to be here as a friend of Bill. And then Evan and I will go up to New Hampshire, talk to Sam Youngman from the Louisville Courier, who is traveling with Senator Rand Paul on the first state of his presidential campaign swing up in New Hampshire. Evan McMorris-Santoro, Sam Youngman, Rand Paul, all coming up at hour number 3, right here on Free Speech TV, delayed till 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 Central, or right away on TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Stay around for hour number 3.
years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like it back?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
All right, President Obama, easy schedule today. He meets with Secretary of State John Kerry this morning. This afternoon, he goes to Jamaica. Jamaica, baby, for less than 24 hours.
This is the Bill Press Show.
West here reporting from Houston, Texas, the Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight. It's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
Around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
In Chicago, a big win for Mayor Rahm Emanuel, but a big showing for Chuy Garcia and a progressive movement built in Chicago that is not going to go away. Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? It is Wednesday, April 8th. Nice to see you today, and thank you for joining us. We know you got a choice of airlines in the morning, and if you choose to fly Bill Press Air, we doubly appreciate it. And you get something for your dollar, too, because we will let you know what's going on. We'll bring you up to date on all the news of the day, wherever it's happening. Here in Washington, D.C., in North Charleston, South Carolina, in Chicago, or any place else in this country or on the planet. The latest that you need to know to start your day and to be an informed citizen. And not only that, your best and first opportunity of the day to sound off about it. We invite your calls on our toll-free line at 866-55-PRESS. We invite your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Again, here we are in our nation's capital, our studio on Capitol Hill, with the entire team present here yesterday. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Hello, guys.
Hello, Bill.
Hey, good morning.
There you go. And Alicia Cruz, ready to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, putting the good pictures out on Free Speech TV and on TawkrTV. I mentioned a little bit earlier, it was kind of strange here in Washington, D.C. We had a little power outage, a spotty power outage, but a serious power outage. It was in various parts of town. It hit some parts of town. It didn't hit other parts of town. But it did hit the Smithsonian museums, some of them. It hit the metro, not the trains, but the escalators. Go figure.
Right.
And it hit the State Department, which went completely black. There's the briefing in the State Department in the dark. And then it hit the White House, where I was at the White House, and the Secret Service didn't know whether this power outage was a result of terrorists getting into the electric system, the electric grid, and shutting it down so they could force open the gates of the White House. Nobody knew what was going on. All we knew there at the White House is there was trouble, there was uncertainty, there was tension, and we were locked in and not allowed to leave the grounds. I vowed at one time that I was going to get out one way or another. I was going to be the first person to leap over the White House fence in the opposite direction. I don't know whether they would have appreciated that or not. Probably not.
Yeah, probably not a good idea.
But I didn't even get a chance because I wasn't even allowed out of the building. They locked us all in. But somehow we all survived, and we got that. We got over that, and I ended up not having to spend the night in the White House bunker. But speaking of that White House fence, Conan O'Brien pointed out last night, people going over the fence, it may soon be a thing of the past.
Speaking of presidential elections, the top 15 contenders for the Republican presidential nomination own at least 40 guns among them. They all own 40 guns, yeah. In other words, if we elect a Republican president, nobody is hopping over the White House fence ever again. The president will shoot them.
I guess that's one solution, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's one way to do it.
It's pretty staggering, though.
It is when you think about it. Obviously.
Why do they need guns? Why do they need 40 guns? It's crazy.
Yeah.
Get out of
here. So the last time I counted, there are 19 candidates, potential candidates, right?
Yeah.
Now, let's assume all of them. That means each of them has 2.
Yeah.
Right? There's certainly some there who have multiple.
Oh, yeah.
Multiple guns.
Proudly.
Do you want to hazard a guess as to who has the most? No doubt about it in my mind. Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
Texas.
Obviously. Yeah, Texas. Gotta be.
Yeah.
Gotta be.
You know, got it. Don't you think?
Yeah.
It's the Texas way.
It's not Carla
It's not
Carla Fiorina.
Right. I don't see Jeb packing.
Oh, it's got one.
I'm sure he's got one, but I don't think he's got
Chris Christie? No.
Probably not.
I hope not. He'll get pissed off at somebody someday.
He'd pull Elvis and just shoot the TV, and he got mad at it one day.
Yeah, right.
Just shut up! Bow!
All right. Mike Pence? Yeah. Bobby Jindal!
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. He's got a few.
Some good hunting in Louisiana, sure.
All right. Hey, Evan McMorris-Santoro is going to be here as a friend of Bill if he ever arrives. Give him a hard time. And we'll be joined a little bit later. Rand Paul making it official yesterday. He is now the second Republican to seek the presidential nomination in 2016. There will be a lot of others. Sam Youngman from the Louisville Courier. The Lexington, Kentucky Herald-Leader. Get the paper right. Is traveling with Rand Paul up in New Hampshire today. And he will join Evan and me at the half hour. Meanwhile, but first.
This is the Full Court Press.
I'll get my cue line here.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. Is Arrested Development coming back to television? That is happening, if you believe executive producer Brian Grazer. He says 17 new episodes will be coming back to TV. Now, you remember the show was canceled.
He was on Morning Joe this morning, so it must be true. I don't know.
Right. Well, he was making the rounds. He was on a podcast, and he talked about how loyal people are to the show, and that he says we're going to do another 17 episodes, so stay tuned. The show went away, was canceled several years ago, and then Netflix brought it back to which had 15 episodes on Netflix, and there was rumors of a movie. That hasn't exactly panned out, so it looks like we're going to get 17 more episodes.
All right.
According to the executive producer.
It's just like too many neat shows, good shows to watch these days.
That's so true.
We're living in the time where TV is churning out better content than movies. I mean, you can see pound for pound.
I know.
Great stuff on TV.
But the thing is, you go to a movie and, it's an hour and a half or 2 hours and you're home. I mean, these TV things, they're 13, 14 episodes.
Yeah, they just suck you in.
All this binge watching.
Yeah. Congratulations to the University of Connecticut. They beat Notre Dame last night in the NCAA Women's Basketball Final. This is the 10th career final for head coach Gino Auriemma and the third consecutive title for the Huskies of UConn. Now, here's a little Washington because, we're hashtag this town. So, Connecticut Democratic Senators Richard Blumenthal and Chris Murphy had a bet against Indiana Senator Dan Coates and Joe Donnelly over the game. The Connecticut Senators were putting up Munson chocolates from Bolton, Connecticut, versus the Indiana Senators had a basket of goodies from South Bend Chocolate Company. So they're going to have to pay up for the Connecticut Senators.
Yeah, these members of Congress always bet on these games.
They have little wagers.
Yeah.
And we go to Boulder, Colorado, where Teller Lake is a little local lake there that has a major problem. They have an infestation in the lake of goldfish.
Oh, my goodness.
People releasing goldfish?
Well, here's what happened. Wildlife officials say that a couple of years ago, someone dumped like a handful of goldfish. Like a pet store might have just dumped them in there from a large tank or something like that. But over the past couple of years, that number has multiplied to thousands of goldfish.
But they're what's the word? Koi? Isn't that what?
Koi is
that's all they are.
But these aren't like the big goldfish. They're like the little.
But they grow into big goldfish. That's my point. I think. I thought so.
Yeah, it's just actually the size of the tank is what dictates your size.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you buy like a little goldfish, you put it in a big tank,
completely.
One of those big koi.
Amazing.
Is that right?
It's that movie Big Fish. They talk about that.
I thought it was a different kind of carp. What do I know?
What do I know?
Anyway.
But that's what I thought.
I don't know. I don't know.
So my point is, big deal with this.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's not a huge thing. It's not like it's gonna. They're not man-eating goldfish.
I think Boulder will survive.
Yeah.
All right.
That's it. That's all I got.
That's it. All right.
I'm done.
Very good.
I mean,
and while we were debating the biggest news story of the day, look who walked in. Evan McMorris-Santoro from Buzzfeed here as a friend of Bill for this hour. Hey, Evan, good to see you.
Good morning.
Little did you know, right? You want to know what the the top of the news of the day, and we're debating goldfish.
Well, look, I just wanted to say, if they were koi, there wouldn't be so many fish, right? I mean, those are some there's definitely not very koi goldfish.
I tell you.
No.
Very, very friendly, very, very gregarious, it sounds
All right,
like.
so the first question, did you survive the blackout at the White House yesterday?
I did. I was safely ensconced in BuzzFeed's new bureau in DuPont Circle.
Oh, you weren't at the White House.
No. So I watched on the stream. I saw some stuff. I had a bunch of interviews yesterday I had to do. I had a bunch of stuff I had to do. But I watched... I should have watched it go on and off, and then I heard there was a suspicious package across the street as well. I mean, it was a whole. It was the full gamut. I was saying to somebody else yesterday that sometimes working at the White House, it actually is sort of cinematic. Like mostly it's like a kind of a moldy basement that you sit in. Yeah. There's coffee stains everywhere. Right. There's a bunch of grumbling newspaper reporters that want their jobs not to go away. And then but in the case of but every now and then a helicopter lands, the president gets on it, or there's a lockdown, or like this power outage thing.
It was a confluence of events yesterday, sort of a perfect storm where you had a power shutdown, and so the Secret Service didn't know what the hell was going on.
That's
seriously, because
doesn't surprise me.
The power. So there's a power outage. There's a suspicious package, and in the meanwhile, Oliver Stone is shooting a movie on Pennsylvania Avenue in front of the White House.
Coincidence?
Yeah, right.
I think not.
And you put all that together, and it was kind of weird. To show you how surreal it was, okay, so we're outside the briefing room trying to figure out what's going on, and I finally just said, you know what, I'm getting out of here while I can. So I decided to walk just to go out the gate, right? I get stopped by a Secret Service agent. I said, you can't go. Can I go that way? No, you can't go that. Can I go that way? Maybe you can go that way. Then he said, no, you can't go that way. And he said, just stay here. Just stand still, right? And he's listening. He says, things are changing too fast. He said, just go back where you were, and I'll get some instructions later. So I turned around, I walked back to the briefing room, and I ended up being interviewed by reporters and on cameras. What did the Secret Service agent tell you? What's going on?
Whoa, that's cool.
But it was crazy.
Look at that.
All I knew was what this guy had told me.
So you were trapped in the White House, in the White House grounds, and Oliver Stone was outside running around doing whatever he wanted outside.
Trapped in the White House grounds. And then we were ordered inside the briefing room and not to leave the briefing room, not even to stand outside. No, it was crazy.
That's wild. I mean, the thing about it is, it's as disruptive as it was for you, and disruptive as it was for all the reporters, and it led to a lot of news stories. Obviously, there was breaking news alerts on MSNBC and all when it happened. The president seemed to just brush it off. I mean, the Pool report right around the time of the power outage he was spotted walking down the colonnade next to the Rose Garden out back of the White House, chewing gum and looking on an iPad.
Chewing gum and looking on an iPad. And Josh Earnest said he was in a meeting with the president when the power outage hit. So the lights dimmed in part of the White House, but not in the room that they were in. So, it's kind of go figure. But the last time I saw you at the briefing room was Monday.
That's right.
When we were surprised that into the briefing room walks the Secretary of Energy, Ernest Moniz, to brief us on the Iran deal. I think he was a pretty sharp dude.
He's emerged as when he was appointed, he's a very qualified guy to be the Secretary of Energy.
A nuclear physicist, right?
Yeah, but he sort of has this like fun affectation in Washington. He's got this kind of crazy haircut, and so when he first came in, he was a guy that the Daily Show loved to talk about and people love to talk about. Yeah. But with this Iran deal, he has emerged as the face of the science behind it. I mean, this is the White House is putting him front and center to talk about this because what they think and what they have behind them now, they've sort of put together a big list of scientists that are saying, look, here's what this deal actually does. Here's what it prevents from happening. Here's the safety protections that it has. And a lot of the proliferation groups and energy types have praised the deal for being so sweeping. And so
much more than they ever expected to come out of this.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I mean, and so Moniz, who was there negotiating with John Kerry, in the final days of this thing, staying up late negotiating with his counterpart in Iran, he's become the sort of I think the White House hopes he's like sort of the nonpartisan scientific face of this Iran, of this deal. You're seeing less of John Kerry, right, who can be polarizing. You're seeing less of some of these other State Department officials. You're seeing a lot more of the Energy Department. Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. And I thought he did a very good job. You know, we were there again. He started out, as I told our listeners and our viewers a couple of days ago, where he says, okay, there are 4 ways Iran could get a nuclear weapon: plutonium, uranium, covert action, whatever the third one was. Now, and we'll show. And I want to tell you how we've blocked them on each of those 4 ways. End of story. It was like, boom. Yeah, he really delivered.
Yeah, and he's so wonky about science stuff, but he's sort of like he's got kind of like a Neil deGrasse Tyson kind of affectation. He loves talking about the science stuff. He loves being sort of approachable about it and explaining it. And you can see, sometimes you think of some of these people who become these type of secretaries. I mean, you don't necessarily need a Secretary of Energy to be, great on camera. You need them to be good at understanding how energy works. But Moniz is good on camera. I mean, he's good at talking about this stuff. I mean, he has a. I think he really seemed to enjoy the negotiation. I mean, there was some senior officials that reporters spoke with, and there was a lot of talk about the negotiations and how they came down to the wire in the final days of it. And I think guys like Moniz were pretty. It sounds like it sounded pretty thrilling to the top diplomats in charge, and I think that also that was for guys like Moniz.
Right. Evan McMorris-Santoro here covers the White House for BuzzFeed here in studio with us as a friend of Bill the entire hour. 866-55-PRESS. Your questions, your comments, join the conversation.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
Role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania. Fracking pollutes our oceans. Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it. Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 27 minutes after the hour. Wow, almost out of time here for the first half hour. And Sam Youngman from the Lexington, Kentucky Herald-Leader, who is in New Hampshire with Rand Paul on day one of his presidential campaign. We will be talking to Evan McMorris-Santoro, and I will be talking to him at the half hour. Evan, very quickly, the president going down to Jamaica today on his way to Panama. I guess everybody stops in Jamaica on the way to Panama. Is that
a standard thing?
Is that the reason for going?
Is that how you do it? I mean, I've never been to Panama or Jamaica. I'd love to go to both of them, but I've never been. But no, what's interesting about this is actually this gets Obama in. You know, the Caribbean has been a big focus of the president. We've done a lot of trade stuff there. He's trying to do more trade stuff, sort of with South America and Central America as well. But the sort of speculation about this trip will be that he could interact with Raul Castro, who, of course, you know, he's just opened diplomatic ties with. So, I mean, this is a huge part of Obama's legacy is the Caribbean and Central America. And so I think that this trip is going to go and try to sort of talk about that stuff. And also, if it has the Cuba attachment to it, a chance. Because, I mean, I still think that before we see this end of this administration, we're going to see the president in Havana, I believe.
Absolutely. So do I, yeah. And they've been very cagey about confirming whether or not the two presidents are going to meet. But they've got to.
I would think so.
Right?
But I mean, I don't know. But I would think so.
Yeah. I mean, have a mojito, sit down and have a cigar, and then sit down and have a serious...
Well, a cigar-flavored nicotine gum in Obama's case.
Yeah, all right. Okay. Again, Rand Paul, he is on the road. Sam Youngman is with him and joins us on our newsline coming up at the half hour.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour. Here we go on a Wednesday, April 8th. It is The Bill Press Show. We are live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, in studio. As a friend of Bill this entire hour, Evan McMorris-Santoro, White House correspondent for Buzzfeed News. And Evan, we used to be joined in the briefing room at the White House every day for The Hill by Sam Youngman. He fled town down to Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky, and the Kentucky Herald and the Herald-Leader, which turned out to be a good move because here we have Rand Paul announcing yesterday for President of the United States, off on his first campaign swing. He's up in New Hampshire, and so is Sam Youngman with Rand Paul, joining us on our newsline this morning. Hey, Sam, welcome back.
Hey, Bill. Good morning. How are you?
How you doing, man? Okay.
Hey, it's great to hear with you. Great to hear you. Great to be with you.
Okay, and with Evan here as well.
Hey, Sam. It's good to see
Evan.
you.
Yeah.
You too.
So let's talk first of all about the announcement yesterday. Ted Cruz held his announcement at Liberty University. What was the venue for Rand Paul?
Ballroom at the Gold House Hotel. Pretty standard fare for a presidential campaign announcement. I don't think anybody had to be there. They would have been fined. So the audience was a little bit smaller than Senator Cruz was.
It was not an obligatory appearance, right? Yeah.
I mean, it was for me. I can't speak to the rest of the audience.
Right. So was his daddy in the crowd?
He was on a riser to the side of the stage. He got a big warm applause from the crowd when he came in, but that was about the extent of his participation in the program. Of course, Senator Paul talked about how his parents had helped him get to where he was, but he didn't single out his dad.
Did not play a major role there.
Yeah, I mean, well, I want to ask you because you mentioned the idea that yes, it definitely wasn't as staged an event as Ted Cruz's was in terms of having sort of an audience that was required to be there. But we did read some stories. I saw Mike Allen did an interview with Rand Paul and mentioned that they wouldn't let people bring their own signs in. Of course, we saw Ron Paul kind of quiet. He didn't speak beforehand. Was there a lot of tight message control? Is that something that we're sort of seeing as a hallmark of this campaign from the beginning?
Oh, there's no question about it. It was a very highly produced affair. And I think, look, the day you announce you're running is the one day you can control the message. After that, it's security bar the door, everybody's coming after you. And I think they wanted to get as much out of it as they could. But I think it's just sort of a larger issue facing Senator Paul is sort of climbing out from under this Ron Paul libertarian shadow. I joked all last year that basically you can look at it like this. Rand Paul's in a box marked crazy. He's trying to crawl out of that box. It's sort of a one step forward, two steps back approach. But, I think he's had some success in growing his brand, but now is when the rubber meets the road to find out who was just curious and who's actually really looking at him.
Well, I find it curious because Rand Paul, I find myself agreeing with Rand Paul on some issues as a liberal, but his basic, what I see, he was tough on the Republican Party yesterday, saying the Republican Party basically has to kind of grow and reach out and not be so insular, Sam. Now, is that a message that can get him all the way to the nomination?
Well, I guess that's a $64,000 question. I don't know, but it can certainly get him a lot of buzz. It can get him a lot of headlines. I thought McKay Cobbins at Buzzfeed had a good piece, trying to be all things to all people. You're not alone in being a liberal Democrat that looks at some of the things Rand Paul says on criminal justice reform, on NSA surveillance, and nods their head. But you got to ask yourself, are you going to end up voting for this guy? And I don't know the answer to that. It's going to be a fun ride to watch.
Are there any lessons in this sort of walk he has to do from Kentucky itself? I know that when he ran the first time, right, he ran against not just the sort of moderate Republican Party, but also against Mitch McConnell, who had a different person that, he wanted to be the senator. And now the two seem to have kind of a, semi-warm relationship.
Well, McConnell's endorsed him.
Right. Are there lessons from Kentucky that sort of give us insight into how Rand Paul has done this dance of being the kind of outsider but also insider that you're talking about?
Well, I think if you look at the overall course of this evolution of Rand Paul, in 2010 he was a Tea Party candidate, pure and simple. His rise dovetailed. I was going through this last week. It's amazing how his rise sort of dovetailed almost right in sync with Rick Santelli going on CNBC and calling for a Tea Party revolution. In 2010 he was pretty easy to put in a box. What's really kind of remarkable to watch is the moves he started making almost immediately after he got elected, bending those fences with Senator McConnell to the point that they have what I would call a very functional relationship. Now, their loyalists in Kentucky don't always get along, but I think the principles do. I think just if you look at the last 5-6 years of Rand Paul, what you see is somebody who is forever going to be stung by watching Ron Paul, his father, marginalized. I don't know if you remember in Sioux City, Iowa in 2012, if Michelle Bachmann's taking shots at your dad, that's going to sting. It's going to leave a mark. Mm-hmm. So I think Rand Paul learned early on that there's no such thing as a moral victory. And he's sort of, become this person who will grow, who will change to achieve beyond that.
Right. Now, on the foreign policy stuff, you mentioned NSA. On the drones, originally saying we ought to do away with all foreign aid, although I think he shifted on that just a little bit. He does face a challenge among some of the hawkish Republicans as not being hawkish enough.
Oh, there's no question about it. If you look at, the guy who was behind the SWIFT Vote Veterans for Truth back in 2004 is now, behind this $1 million effort to unceremoniously welcome Rand Paul into the race. I think it's going to, we'll know from who the nominee is which direction the Republican Party is headed. Is it Dick Cheney's Republican Party? Is it the Republican Party of 2002 who was running those ads against, Matt Cleland in Georgia featuring pictures of Osama bin Laden? Or is it a younger, more libertarian bent Republican Party? Now, if I had to put some money down this far out, I would say we're still closer to Cheney than we are to Paul. But I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. I saw someone put it this morning that his point is that the Republican Party is not big enough today to win the White House, so that it has to grow and reach out. Rand Paul saying that, but I don't know whether he didn't use those words, but that's kind of what he's saying, and whether the Republican Party is willing to accept that and react is a big question. There's a lot riding on this campaign, I think, more than any other Republican jumping in.
Yeah, I think you're right. Rand Paul seemed to be the only person that really seemed to read and take to heart the RNC's 2012 autopsy report.
Yes,
and start, really going out there and aggressively trying to pursue some of these voting blocks that Republicans had just kind of let fall by the wayside. And I tell you, from my perspective, it's almost maddening because you want to just call him out for pandering, but then he gets up on a stage in Detroit and says, "Hey, I'm a politician. I'm here for votes." So he's been pretty upfront about why he's doing it.
Yeah.
I wonder. I mean, along the lines of that, you talk. I mean, he is. His rhetoric is often usually pretty pointed, and like in the first opening days, he kind of has been focusing on Hillary Clinton, the likely Democratic nominee. But we've seen. Him tussle with Republicans and other Republican presidential candidates already. I mean, it won't be pretty, Mr. Nice Guy for very long, right? We're going to see Rand Paul be kind of maybe one of the sharpest sticks in the race when it comes to taking on those other Republicans, don't you think?
Oh, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, he hasn't been shy about, sort of trolling some of these folks, Jeb and Cruz, and I was
Rubio.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to picture sort of an image of what the Republican primary will look like, picture a circular firing squad with Rand Paul sitting in a chair in the middle. These guys that are getting in the race, they're going to have a checklist that says visit Iowa, visit New Hampshire, hit Rand Paul on foreign policy. So, yeah, if he's not swinging back or even going on offense, then this is going to be a very short run.
Right. Now, Sam, I hate to bring up a sore subject here, but I do have to ask you, how much money did you lose with your bracket, man. Sam?
I did just a big chunk of my soul, Bill.
That was a heartbreak.
That must have been a dark day in Lexington, Kentucky, huh?
It's the first time I cried over a basketball game in 23 years.
Well, I got to tell you weren't the only one to have Kentucky at the top of your bracket. We all got wiped out on that one. Yeah. Man, did we ever. Right.
That's a tough one. It's going to be raw for a while. I'm grateful to have.
I can tell.
Yeah, I'd say I'm grateful to have Rand Paul as a distraction this week. It's gotten me out of my bathrobe and out of my slippers, and just, walking around moping with the Charlie Brown sad music playing over me.
All right. So listen, it's New Hampshire today, and then quickly, are you on the road with him? And what's his? What other states is it going to hit? Obviously.
Well, I'm going to head to South Carolina with him tomorrow. Obviously, this foreign policy thing, it's just such a huge component of his campaign.
Right.
And, how he negotiates that. And so I'm going to go to South Carolina with him tomorrow. He's going to do a speech in front of the USS Yorktown, and then I'm going to head back to Kentucky because I tell you, going through airport yesterday, I was channeling Roger Murtaugh from Lethal Weapon. I'm just getting too old for this. I better get back to Lexington to make sure it's still standing.
All right. Hey, Sam, always we miss you, man. Miss you in Washington, but good to talk to you.
Hey, I miss you guys.
Have fun on the road. All right, Sam.
Hey, I appreciate it.
Kentucky, Herald-Leader, Kentucky.com, Kentucky.com, or you can follow Sam on Twitter, @Sam Youngman. Evan McMorris-Santoro here from Buzzfeed, covers the White House for Buzzfeed. We'll come back. Rand Paul, very, very interesting character. We'll hear a little bit from his acceptance speech when we come back and talk more about it.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts, but what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at. In general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Here we go now at 11 minutes to go before the top of the hour. Indeed. Hey, Lisa, let's listen to a little bit of Rand Paul. First of all, where he makes the announcement to his liberty lovers.
Today, I announce with God's help, with the help of liberty lovers everywhere, that I am putting myself forward as a candidate for President of the United States of America.
That's why they got to make that the great big thing. But it's interesting, liberty lovers everywhere. That's as close as he came to saying, I'm a libertarian.
Yeah, it's also a big shout out to his old Tea Party crowd that got him in, right? I mean, they're the ones who made liberty
So he didn't walk away from them, but he didn't say, I'm running as a libertarian.
Well, this is the most interesting thing about the Rand Paul candidacy, and I think that Sam, who's awesome, mentioned it a little bit in his in our interview with him. Rand Paul is going to run as the guy who is like, I'll just say it how it is. I have no filter. I'm not controlled by these machine guys. I'll just say what I need to say. But the reality is, he's very careful about what he says. I mean, we did not see his dad speak. His dad has been a very polarizing figure and had some problems lately when it comes to issues like Israel and things like that Rand Paul does not want to be associated with the libertarian views on cutting aid and funding and stuff like that. You saw a thing with the signs. You know, I mean, one of the things about the whole Paul experience has been the sort of like real grassroots politics experience. People would like pour in and, you know, make homemade signs and homemade videos and homemade, you know, just, you know, sort of bootleg Ron Paul ads and stuff in 2012. You know, Rand Paul's campaign is saying, leave your signs at the door and we'll give you signs that we've made that look like they're handmade signs, but we made them. Yeah. So actually, Rand Paul, who has interesting things to say, is going to be very careful about how he says those things. Yep. And we're seeing that from the very beginning. And I think it's kind of a weird juxtaposition for a guy who's supposed to run as the kind of, you know, unfiltered, I'm ready to say whatever needs to be said, I can't be controlled guy.
Right. I saw somebody summed up this morning, his father, Ron Paul, was all about ideology. Rand Paul is all about winning. Ideology too, but winning. He understands. You win. I want to ask you quickly about this. After so many incidences, unreported, but incidents recently reported, of white police officers shooting unarmed black men in Ferguson, Missouri, in Cleveland, Ohio, a kid, the choking up in Staten Island, New York. North Charleston, South Carolina this morning, a different story. A white police officer charged with murder for shooting an unarmed black man in the back. Is this a turning point, do you think?
It's certainly a tragedy of a story, and you know, one of the things that happens with this story.
And by the way, the video. It's because of the video
you have
that
perfectly shot. I mean, this video is perfectly shot. Yeah. I mean, it's as though. I mean, it's as though it was set up. You know, for like on a film set. That's how good this video is. Yeah. And the problem with that, of course, is that that's not a kind of level of evidence you're going to have often.
Every case.
But I think, you know. In this case, we are seeing where we have seen sort of a polarized, in the past, we've seen sort of polarized response to these things, where you have elected leadership kind of rallying around the police and protest movements sort of grow up and then, you know, never the twain shall meet. In this case, you know, the Republican Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina condemned this. The mayor condemned it. I mean, this seems to be kind of rallying people, as actually the Garner choking death did briefly do the same thing until the police union sort of did their turning their back thing and sort of changed their position on that. But this is, you know, this is one of these stories that just keep happening and that just keep appearing, and it's difficult to say what kind of impact it will have because if the barrier is you have to have beautifully, perfectly shot video. That's a tough barrier for most of the time.
But it certainly could increase the pressure on video cams for police officers.
Oh, absolutely.
That they can't turn off, that are always rolling.
And, you know, police have wanted these video cameras, too.
Yes.
I mean, because,
it protects them.
In the case of this officer, you know, allegedly said that, you know, that there's an altercation between him and the man he shot, that the video doesn't maybe bear out. So, you know, video is good for all sides on this stuff, it seems like.
Absolutely. Hey, Evan, so great to see you. Thanks so much for coming in.
Of course.
Evan,
thanks for having me.
McMorris-Santoro, Buzzfeed, buzzfeed.com. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment, and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, you may have heard me rant about it yesterday, but I'm still exercised about the fact that President Obama hosted an Easter prayer breakfast at the White House yesterday morning. Look, I know the president's a man of faith. I'm glad he went to church on Easter Sunday with the first family. That's where religious ceremonies belong, in a church, a mosque, or a synagogue, or a chapel. They do not belong in a public building with taxpayer funds. And having a prayer service at the White House is bad enough, but having a prayer service for Christians only, Christian ministers only, is doubly wrong. Surely, as a constitutional lawyer, President Obama knows about the separation of church and state. And it's about time that President Obama started practicing the separation of church and state. It's my parting shot for today, folks. Have a great Wednesday, April 8th. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.